This is the sixth session in the Democracy Matters programme, and Johnston's entitled it Active Citizenship and Collective Responsibility. So we've explored what it might mean to be citizens of the earth, which was the focus last week. This is a dimension of citizenship that is not featured much in our consciousness, but we have become aware of the environmental and ecological challenges and the responsibilities we have for the destruction of the ecological systems and for the repair and mending of nature so that a more sustainable future may be possible. We are then active citizens of Earth. Citizenship and responsibility go hand in hand, and that is a challenge in a society that is historically, politically, and religiously or ideologically divided. Historians do not do the future. Historians deal with the past and try to learn important lessons from the past. If we don't understand the past, we're likely to repeat it. That is something of a truism. The important lessons from the past, from history, are that nothing is guaranteed, nothing is inevitable, and the future is a surprise. Johnston was at the first European Ecumenical Assembly in Basel, Switzerland in 1989. It was a first of its kind when all of the churches of Europe, Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox, had met together. It was the biggest and most significant church event since the 16th century Reformations. The focus was represented by the acronym JPIC, Justice, Peace, and the Integrity of Creation. People of faith from across Europe were being serious about the environmental issues, but were also being realistic and holistic in the approach. The environmental issues, or integrity of creation, were inseparable from issues of poverty and violence, issues of justice and peace. A year or so later, a World Assembly met in Seoul, Korea, also with a focus on JPIC, Justice, Peace, and the Integrity of Creation. These were two major and highly significant conferences, and the agenda of JPIC is still very much alive. The year 1989 was a significant year. Europe was changing as the Eastern and Central European countries were being liberated from tyranny into democracy and freedom. The Berlin Wall coming down was the huge symbol of momentous change. In Basel, we were focused on JPIC, but conversations, formal and informal, were also engaged with the amazing events in one Eastern and Central European country after another. Johnston remembers conversations with Estonian Methodists. They were still part of the Soviet Union with the other Baltic countries, Latvia and Lithuania. He asked them if they thought what was happening in Eastern Germany, Poland and Hungary was going to happen in Estonia. Would Estonia become independent and free? They didn't think so. They didn't see that happening. But 2 years later, it did. There was a movement for change in East Germany, or the German Democratic Republic. But the wall came down suddenly, unexpectedly, and they were surprised that they were streaming through a hole in the wall to West Berlin. With equal surprise, thousands of Hungarians found themselves suddenly walking across the border between Hungary and Austria, and no one stopped them. The future comes as a surprise. Walls and borders are never guaranteed to last forever. Nothing is inevitable, and the future surprises everyone. Sometimes a future breaks out that no one saw coming and no one expected. Now, Northern Ireland is changing. Demographics are changing. Identities are changing. And what it means to be a citizen is also changing. Again, Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is inevitable. And the future will probably surprise us. Johnston thinks Brexit threw open the future of the United Kingdom. And that issue is much more than the Irish question. There are questions now that will not go away. What is the future of the United Kingdom? What is the future of the monarchy? What is the future of Scotland? Wales is also an open question again. What is the future of Northern Ireland? And what is also the future of Ireland? What is the future of Europe? What is the future of the planet, geopolitically and ecologically? All that history teaches us is that the future is a surprise. We live in interesting times. We live in challenging times. So what is democracy? What is politics now? And what is citizenship today? And citizens of what? There's a lot of discussion going on about the future of Ireland and the future of Northern Ireland. There may be some who are being politically opportunistic, but beyond that, there are live issues and real questions. Will the United Kingdom survive with Northern Ireland remaining a part of it? Will the United Kingdom become a federal union with meaningful parliaments in Belfast, Edinburgh, London and Cardiff, and maybe even regional parliaments in England? Will the constitutional position of Northern Ireland change? And so we will have an integrated Ireland or a federal Ireland. Would the federal arrangement mean the reunification of the province of Ulster? One thing is clear in the Good Friday Belfast Agreement. There will be no change in the status of Northern Ireland without the consent of the people of Northern Ireland. Any momentous decision there will lie with the people of Northern Ireland and not the politicians. There will also be a referendum in the Republic after a Northern referendum. If the Northerners vote no to an integrated or federal Ireland, a referendum in the Republic would not be necessary. That's clear. What has been less noticed in the agreement is the clause about citizens, and I'm going to quote from the agreement. It's the birthright of all the people of Northern Ireland to identify as Irish or British, or both, as they choose. So far, so clear. And we already know this and maybe have chosen to identify as Irish, British, or both. And therefore confirm that their right to hold both Irish and British citizenship is accepted by both governments and would not be affected by any future change in the status of Northern Ireland, end quote. It's the last part of this sentence that has been least noticed, if noticed at all. And you may not recall any political party drawing attention to the end piece, and just to repeat it. Their right to hold both British and Irish citizenship is accepted by both governments and would not be affected by any future change in the status of Northern Ireland. If by referendum the people of Northern Ireland were to vote by a majority for either an integrated Ireland or a federal Ireland, Northerners will have an enduring birthright to identify as British or Irish or both, as they do now within the United Kingdom. They will also have the right to dual citizenship. Whatever the future, if it's an integrated Ireland or a federal Ireland, Northerners, and this includes Northern Unionists, will have the enduring right to hold British or Irish citizenship or both. Put it another way, in an integrated or federal Ireland, British citizenship is not Ireland's to give, but to recognise. This might mean that a constitutional duty of recognition might be legislated. In the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, Northerners, including Unionists, have the enduring right to hold forever British citizenship. Unionists, by the very definition of the term, do not want an integrated or federal Ireland, but they want to remain in the United Kingdom. But if, democratically, a majority of the people vote for either an integrated or a federal Ireland, and Unionists accept the democratic wishes, they will find themselves in the new Ireland still with their British citizenship intact. Not for a decade of transition, but enduringly. Irish citizens may want to persuade them that there are advantages in the new future of also holding Irish citizenship. Quote, Irish citizenship and an Irish passport command attractive travel, educational and work opportunities, as well as voting rights elsewhere in the European Union's other member states, opportunities and rights now lost to British citizens, end quote. Unionists, of course, may not be interested in any of this, and some may not accept any democratic decision, but all will need to decide whether we're democrats or not, and whether or not democracy and responsible citizenship are the best for collective well-being and a flourishing future. In the last few years, increasing numbers of unionists, while also holding to remaining part of the United Kingdom, have already chosen to be both Irish and British citizens, holding both Irish and British passports. The future will surprise us. Whatever the level of surprise, we're still going to have to work out what being citizens means and what civic responsibility means. Now, the next part, Johnston has titled Being Human, Being Citizens. Aristotle was the person who gave shape to citizenship. His political philosophy stressed the need for knowledge and virtue to be able to serve others. Citizens need qualities, and Aristotle did not believe we're capable of being good citizens. Quote, he took it for granted that there are better and worse candidates for citizenship, and that properly educated, economically independent, native-born free men are best. Aristotle came up with the early template for citizenship, but there were limits. It was a hierarchical model, and since women were meant by nature to be ruled by their husbands, so it was against nature to admit women to citizenship. For Aristotle, those who were equal to one another, and women and slaves were not, only they could exercise their capacities for virtue. So good citizens means being truly human and exercising virtue. But Aristotle did not think that all could be truly human. Again, women and slaves were not. Not everyone could exercise the ethical and political virtues. We will want to critique Aristotle and the vision of citizenship from ancient Greece. There is, however, a truth that needs to be developed. Being human, being ethical, and living virtues are important for good citizenship. Quote, in taking inspiration from his work, we need to attend to the sources and limits of his own vision, as well as to the ways in which it can be developed further in our own age. End quote. We need to develop and build on Aristotle's vision of citizenship, realizing our humanity is part of our being responsible citizens. So that's the end of the first part. And Johnston sent out 2 questions that you would have received for discussion. I'll just read them out to you. The first one, history teaches that nothing is guaranteed, nothing is inevitable, and the future is a surprise. What might this mean in our context? And the second question, it's a quote from the Good Friday Belfast Agreement. Their right to hold both British and Irish citizenship is accepted by both governments and would not be affected by any future change in the status of Northern Ireland. End quote. Is that agreement helpful, acceptable, liberating? So those are the 2 questions that you have, and they're now in the chat for discussion, and there's 20 minutes for the discussion.
Citizenship for all, and we saw how Aristotle put limits on citizenship. Women and slaves were not capable of the ethical and political virtues. Women and slaves were not authentically human. And we will protest that and resist Aristotle's limited citizenship. But then we need to ask, do we not practice some kind of limited citizenship? Who are they excluded in our citizenship praxis? Now, those with more wealth and power, which usually means better educated, are often the people at the top of the societal pyramid, and will be the active citizens. They will be the ones thought to be more capable of the ethical and political virtues and more capable of responsibility and taking responsibility. Poor, vulnerable, the poorly educated are assumed to be less than capable and less human, with no capacity to be maybe active citizens or good citizens. So perhaps there are class limitations to being good citizens. The limitations may also have a racial or ethnic basis. There is discrimination and the denial of being active citizens, also on the basis of religion. Muslims are second-class citizens in India. And for years, the black community in South Africa were second, even third-class citizens in that apartheid state. Tamils, who are Hindu, are the second-class citizens to the majority Buddhist population in Sri Lanka. And in the first half century of Northern Ireland, Catholic nationalists were discriminated against socially and politically and felt themselves to be second-class citizens. And some on the Unionist side did not consider them citizens or that they should qualify as citizens or have the capacity for citizenship. Now, we still may be operating from a hierarchical approach to citizenship. Not all are quite capable of being active citizens. We do not want maybe all to be active citizens, and not all are fully human enough to be responsible. Class, race, ethnicity, religion, gender differences, and sexual orientation are barriers imposed by us to those not like us becoming fully active citizens. Perhaps we've not moved too far from Aristotle. We too impose limitations on who is or who is not a real citizen. Who are they excluded from citizenship in Ireland, in Britain? Who do we want to treat as less than human and therefore as less than citizens? Who are our second-class citizens, if citizens at all? But in a pluralist democracy, where democracy, like Catholicity, means here comes everybody, citizenship is for all. All share responsibility for each other, for the flourishing and well-being of all. All are interrelated, and all are for and can contribute to the common good. Now, if the Greeks didn't quite see it that way, I think the Hebrews did. And if that was not quite the vision of citizenship in Athens, it was maybe in Jerusalem. As a conquered, exiled people in Babylon, they were very much second class, and so too was their God. They emerged from their Babylonian captivity singing a new song. Every human person, without exception, was created in the image and likeness of God. In the ancient Near East, you remember from other weeks, only the king was believed to be in the image of God, and only the king was stamped with divinity and sacredness. Well, the Hebrews emerged from Babylon singing loudly and reciting at the heart of the public place that every human and humans together were in the image of God. Everybody had divinity and sacredness. This was the equality of human worth and dignity, and the equality of every human to be citizen, responsible for each other and for life together. The humans also were earthlings, one with the earth, citizens of the earth, responsible with the whole community of life for the flourishing of earth and all that lives. I think somewhere in here is radical democracy and radical citizenship. Citizenship has become, I believe, a key term for democracy in Brazil. There's still a lot of discourse around of what citizenship means. It has been said that in general terms, it can be said that citizenship is about the right to have rights in a situation of social apartheid where exclusion prevails. And in a country where there is massive poverty and inequality, where millions struggle for mere survival and where there is a huge income and wealth of a small number of very rich people, it is important for people to realize that they have rights and they have citizenship. A Brazilian Catholic liberation theologian has said that the greatest flaw in Latin American nations is the lack of citizenship. An influential thinker in Latin America is Hugo Assmann. In societies where the poor are discarded, Assmann has brought together two powerful ideas. At the same time, it's been said, as the poor have become discardable by the dominant neoliberal market capitalism, they only come into sight for those converted to solidarity. Assmann has stressed educating for solidarity, and as a public theologian, he wants to underline the importance of conversion as social conversion. We are converted to solidarity, to communitarian relationships. And Assmann insists that it is necessary to join values of solidarity with effective rights of citizenship. Now, as Northern Ireland football supporters sing, and they'll have a chance to sing in the next week or so, we're not Brazil, we're Northern Ireland. But we have our divisions, as has the rest of Ireland, not perhaps in the same, certainly not on the same scale or extent as Brazil, but there is socio-economic inequality. There are class divisions and religious divisions, or cultural religious divisions. And there are sharp educational divisions, high achievers and low, even non-achievers, reflecting the economic injustices, the political injustices, and the injustices of the educational system itself. We too need educating for solidarity, social conversion, religious or secular humanist or whatever, and to become newly orientated to communitarian relationships rather than tribal sectarian relationships. We too need to bring together in our consciousness attitudes, behaviors, actions, and life praxis, in our social structures, the values of solidarity with effective rights of citizenship. We need to construct an inclusive citizenship of solidarity. I want to end by looking at covenantal citizenship and politics. Jerusalem has given us the gift of covenantal citizenship and politics. This is what we mean when we speak in Europe and North America of the impact and influence on our civilization or socio-political life of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Now, there are those, as we have seen, who are instrumentalizing and abusing that tradition to build their authoritarian politics and their predatory and extractive economies. And those who are abusing and using the Judeo-Christian tradition to build and assert white supremacy, even Christian supremacy or Christian white supremacy. Now, covenant is at the heart of the tradition, and a covenant politics, as the former and late Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs has pointed out, quote, by definition, it is, by definition, a politics of responsibility. It is created by an act of commitment. The people undertake to abide by a moral code, pursue a moral vision, and create a society built on justice, compassion, and respect for human dignity. Covenants arise, he says, among people strongly committed to freedom, equality, and dignity. Now, how close are we to that in Northern Ireland, in Ireland, or the United Kingdom? It is the moral vision of a society built on justice, compassion, and respect for human dignity, possible when a people is committed to freedom and equality and dignity. So our politics civil society and citizenship seriously committed and morally capable of creating such a society? There is more. A covenantal society is a moral community, Sachs says. A moral community, future-orientated, goal-directed, where citizens are on a journey towards a destination. Well, 25 years on from the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, is that where we are? Are we now, or are we yet, a moral community, future-orientated, goal-directed, with citizens and politicians moving towards a destination? Or are we a morally ambiguous community, stuck in the past, maybe even wanting to maintain the past, with nothing much to aim for than preserving a past or an ideology and no goal or objective to reach? When we reflect on covenantal politics and citizenship, this is not the responsibility of a few, still less an elite or any chosen or exceptional people. This is the responsibility of everyone: unionists, nationalists, neithers, ethnic minorities, inclusive citizenship and responsibility. Sachs again. That is what citizenship in a covenantal society is. Co-responsibility for justice, equity, kindness, and compassion. The future may well surprise us. And we might not, as we've been saying, even have control over that. But the point being made, to be ready. But we are all active citizens with collective responsibility to create a moral community. And whatever our divisions, our past, our sectarian relationships, our injustices and violence, we are, I think, now challenged with a citizenship solidarity, all with a co-responsibility for justice, equity, kindness, and compassion. And Athens returns to remind us that we are cosmopolites, citizens of the world and citizens of the earth. Parochialism kills us. Our wee country, wherever that may be, and wherever it is, that mindset suffocates us, squeezes the imagination and creativity and life out of us.